Hello everyone and welcome back to Seed Time and Harvest. If this is your first time here, thank you for joining us. My name is Sharice and today I'm going to bring you in for an update on our fall garden, our transition garden. We're going to be feeding and just cleaning up our garden bed. All right, so stay tuned. So the first thing I'm going to be doing today, I'm going to be cleaning up the garden, removing all the dead and dying leaves on the floor, all the pine needles that fell from the tree. I'm going to remove those. And as well as these broccolis, I'm going to be removing the leaves because we had a light frost and some of our broccoli leaves got burned, which shouldn't have happened. But as you know, things happen sometimes that we have no control over. But anything that's dead or dying in our garden, we're going to remove those because, as you know, pests and diseases are attracted to anything that's dead and dying because they're the cleanup crew and we don't want to disrupt the ecosystem in our garden. So I'm just going to go in and clean up this garden bed. The plant will keep growing, so you can remove the lower leaves and you'll still have a successful broccoli plant. Some of them have more dead leaves than others, but I'm just going to go through and get all of those removed. You want your garden to be attractive. Not only do you want it to have an abundant supply of food, but you also want to make it look good. And if you do have a fall compost, once you remove all these items, as long as there's no powdery mildew, there's no mold, you can drop these in your compost pile. I mean, everything is looking wonderful in the garden. Even this parsley, it looks beautiful. We have been harvesting from it, and with your herbs, what you'll find is the more you harvest, the more they grow. So don't be afraid to harvest. Don't be afraid to go in the garden, remove some stems, remove some leaves, because that's how you encourage your plants to be productive. If you have a lot of empty space in the garden, you can even go in and turn the items that you're removing back under the soil so they will break down and in turn feed the garden. But I don't, because my plants are so close together, I don't want to disrupt the roots, so I'm not going to do that. But if you have space, by all means, you can turn in your compost. Works just as well. We'll just keep going, just using my nice rake, mini rake, raking through all these leaves. I have a pine tree just above me, so a lot of the pine needles fell in the garden. And pine needles take a long time to decompose, so I'm not going to turn those in the garden. I'm going to put those in the compost pile just because of how long it takes to decompose. And these are not like wood chips. As you know, wood chips, you have to have a lot of nitrogen in the soil to be able to break down wood chips. They will pull nitrogen from the soil. It's not the same when you compost leaves, especially plant leaves, veggies, because they add nitrogen. They don't take nitrogen for them to break down. This area in our garden was empty. In the last video that I made, there was nothing here, but I went ahead and I filled in the spot with some lacinato kale. They're also known as dinosaur kale. So I'm gonna go ahead and clean this up because they are looking nice. And kale, it really doesn't like to be crowded, but I believe the spacing is wonderful. Of course, we'll harvest as they go. In this section of the garden, I had a sweet basil plant. I harvested a lot of the leaves, dehydrated those, so they are in a jar inside. I'm gonna remove that. And right beside the sweet basil, I'm not sure if you can see this grass looking plant. This was actually ginger. Had 2 or 3 ginger plants right here. The plants have died. I did not get a chance to transplant those before the frost. I'm gonna dig it up to see what's there. I'm not expecting much because the plant was not there for very long. So I'm gonna take out this basil, just knock off as much of the dirt as you can. And then you can see that the roots was growing really nicely. It was actually spreading out in the garden in search of nutrients. So let's see what this ginger did. Wow, okay. I have a nice bit of ginger and it has not started to regrow. So you can tell this was the one that was planted originally and this root came out of it. So I'm gonna take it inside If I saw any sign of new growth, I would have left it in the garden, but it's too cold. So I'm gonna take it inside, dry it up, and then prepare it to plant back in spring. You can tell the difference between the old growth and the new growth. You see this part is darker and the new growth is a lot lighter. Okay, and here is the husk of what was there previously. And not much. Again, it wasn't there for long, a couple weeks, I believe. And that's what we have, 2 pieces from that plant. Then we'll do the next one. Let's see. I really love gardening. There's always that element of surprise when you think, what does it look like underneath? Because with your root plants, of course you can see the growth on top, but you cannot tell what's growing underneath. So this one is a lot more ginger. It's a bigger root than the previous one. You can see how well these roots went down in the soil, which is amazing. And for the short period of time that it was there, oh, I broke it. You get a few pieces of ginger. You can make some tea, or you can regrow it. I probably end up regrowing these. If you can find a nice piece of organic ginger at the store, you can always grow a piece of it. So I think homegrown organic ginger is a lot more fragrant, has a lot more strength than just regular ginger that you'll pick up at the supermarket. So there we have 2, 4, 6 pieces of ginger. A lot in comparison to what was planted before. That's what was planted previously, and then that's how much we got out of it. If I had not taken it out of the ground and left it in there, it would have regrown eventually, but I don't want it to rot. I have a lot of earthworms in this bed, and I don't want my plants, my roots, to rot. Speaking of earthworms, I have one right here. Here I have the cauliflower patch, and it's very sad because these are not growing as well as they should. The leaves really should be as big as cabbage leaves, but I know what the problem was. I got them and I let them sit in the garden for a long time before I got the opportunity to transplant them, and as a result, the growth is stunted and they are forming heads prematurely. So I'm not gonna really do anything with these because I'm not expecting much. What I'm gonna do though, I'm gonna let them stay in the soil because I can't really plant anything at this time. So at the end of the growing season, I'm gonna turn these back into the soil. Here in this bed, our final bed, I have a flat leaf parsley. Really like flat leaf parsley. I like the curled one too, but I find that I use the flat leaf parsley a lot. And this is very productive. We always break from it, and again, with your herbs, the more you harvest, the greater the plant will spread, the more it will flourish. And yes, you can tell that it is flourishing. It's a nice bunch of parsley, and the growth is not complete. There's not a lot of undergrowth to clean up except to remove some of the lower leaves of the cabbage, because the leaves are so abundantly spread that not a lot of stuff gets to be able to fall in between on the bed. All right, so not a lot of cleanup to do here. The cabbage are looking amazing. Really, really nice plants. I love growing cabbage in the fall. The colors are vibrant. The leaves are really nice, big and pretty, and they are already starting to form heads. As you can see, this one here, it's not as compact as later on, but the head has already started. Here we have another one that is starting to form head. I usually like to harvest my cabbage leaves green. I think it has a lot more nutritional value green than to form a head. So at this stage, you can harvest your cabbage leaves and cut them and use them just as you would whether you're doing kale or collards or even cabbage. You cut them and cook them just the same, right? And right beside the cabbage, the last thing I want to talk about in this bed are our celery. I think I had about 6 celery plants in here, and they are looking really, really nice. You can see the stalks are coming up really pretty. I cut them again and I harvest one stalk at a time. I don't need the entire stalk in one sitting, so the garden is basically my refrigerator. I take what I need as I go and cook and allow the plant to flourish. So you can see the extent of this bed. It's really, really pretty, really, really nice, doing really well. And I'm very happy with this fall garden. Very happy with that. That was amazing, wasn't it? I love garden cleanup. I love spending time just outside in nature in the garden. As you can see, I have 3 beds, and this one in the front is doing the best, and that's because it gets the most amount of sunlight. This one is always getting sunlight, whereas the 2 behind me, they're very close to the house, so they don't get a lot of sunlight. And unfortunately, that's the case because that's the space that we are working with. If you have a good amount of space, put your garden in the sun so that they will benefit from that light. It will be able to photosynthesize and grow abundantly. Thank you so much for joining me again in Seed Time and Harvest. Like the video, share it with a friend, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you can be notified when our next video goes out. See you next time where we'll be feeding our garden. Take care. Happy planting. Bye.